Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Just a quick update. I filmed this on Wednesday as a part of our weekly live show. As we all know, Paulson Adebo, he has been ruled out for the remainder of the season due to a broken femur. So he was listed as a trade candidate. Just wanted to go ahead and give you guys that preface. Wanted to still give you the content because I think it's still a good video, but just needless to say, basically replace Paulson Adebo with Marshawn Lattimore. Reasons are pretty much similar. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Dat Nation, y'all stay golden. All right, so in today's video, we've done a lot of discussion about players the Saints could trade for. But what about players the Saints could trade away? There's a reason you don't see any names. You see the positions. We're going to talk about an edge rusher, a running back, a corner, a tight end, and yes, a quarterback. Who could that be? You better stick around so that way you can find out. But I want you to share your thoughts on this question for me. Name a player that you want to trade away. Bear in mind, Derek Carr has a no-trade clause, so I doubt he gets moved. But who is a player that you want to trade away? It's your turn to share your thoughts. And while you're sharing your thoughts, you'll actually be able to find the link to today's presenting sponsor, and it's Public Rec. I know you're seeing this shirt. My girlfriend, Maddie, she's watching the live show. She just texted me, hey, Trizzy, you better get home because, whoo, you look good. And that Public Rec, and I'll tell you what, Maddie, I'm feeling even better. Now, let's be real, guys. Wearing pants sucks. So who decided that stiff, uncomfortable fabric digging into your family jewels was necessary to go out and look put together? Well, I'm here to tell you that those days are finally over, baby. For a limited time only, our listeners at Saints Now by Chat Sports get 20% off their entire order when you use code CHAT at publicrec.com. That's 20% off your order at publicrec.com with promo code CHAT. Now, I've been looking for some new clothes to upgrade my wardrobe, and thanks to Public Rec, I look good and feel better. Trust me on this, fellas. Your ladies are going to love it. It's stretchy. It's comfortable. You don't really get much with the pit stains. It's really, really nice. So if you're just trying to go have a few brews with the fellas, if you're trying to play a quick 9, or maybe you're out on a hot date tearing up the town with the little special-looking lady, I'll tell you what, Public Rec will help you close the deal. So stop suffering in regular pants. For a limited time, our listeners get 20% off when you use code CHAT at checkout. That's 20% off with the code CHAT at publicrec.com. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Say goodbye to pants that put up a fight, because when comfort meets style, you have found Public Rec. All right, first trade candidate, it's Chase Young, the edge rusher that the New Orleans Saints actually signed early in the offseason. It was the big splashy move that they made this year. But this is not an idea that I'm like, you know what, get him out of here. I want him gone. It's actually an idea that's floated out there by Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler, discussed on NFL.com. Sorry, I just took a quick sip of water. I had to lather the pipes right there. What about Chase Young? Saints really like the guy and could be interested in signing him to a long-term deal. But if they check in and don't feel good about their chances of doing that, could he be on the move for the second deadline in a row? Reminder, he got traded by Washington to San Francisco last year at the trade deadline and then signed with New Orleans in the offseason this year. With the Saints sitting at 2-4, perhaps the organization would listen to offers closer to the deadline. This is Jeremy Fowler, by the way. I'd be mildly surprised if anything happens. So Fowler doesn't think this trade will go down, but, not saying it's impossible. Fowler continued to say, Chase Young garnered a third-round pick in last year's trade from Washington to San Francisco. And now that he's fully healthy and playing productive snaps, I would assume that New Orleans wouldn't accept anything less in a deal if it even considers it. So when it comes to trading Chase Young, I'm kind of in the camp of the production hasn't been all that good, but we could take a look at the depth chart. It's not great. 16 tackles for Chase Young, 1.5 sacks, very limited in terms of tackles for loss. Like, I'm not saying Chase Young is a bad football player. Excuse me, 16 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 25 pressures for Chase Young. I'm not saying he's a bad football player, but I would be lying to say if he wasn't underwhelming. It's definitely been underwhelming. But my problem is if you trade away Chase Young, we've already known that Cam Jordan is starting to lose some of that steam. He has lost a lot of it. Peyton Turner feels like every other week we're having a conversation about, oh, he made a play. Oh, he's hurt. Oh, he made a play. Oh, he's hurt. I'm kind of over Peyton Turner. Isaiah Foskey, what's going on there? Second-round pick, hasn't done anything. Carl Granderson has really slowed down. So I'm like, I'm in the camp of Chase Young trade, get a third-round pick. That'd be nice. But do I want to mortgage the rest of my season and have a somehow already worse pass rush? Like, it's bad for New Orleans, and it'll only get worse if you trade Chase Young away. So I'm going to ask you this question. I want you to be the GM for me. Would you trade Chase Young, or would you keep him? Just let me know down in the comments. Type keep or trade. It's your turn to be the GM. This is the pinned comment, so when YouTube throws an ad break here, don't scroll away. Don't click out of it. Just scroll down, share your thoughts. You can see what other people are saying, see how much smarter you are, how much dumber they are. And then, feel free to respond to a handful of people as well. All right, let's talk about Alvin Kamara, another player the Saints could possibly trade away. And I'm going to go ahead and say one thing right now. This trade for Alvin Kamara is something that I don't expect to happen. But if there were a trade to go down on the offensive side of the ball, the odd man out is Alvin Kamara, a player who hasn't signed a contract extension. He's seeking more guarantees, and it's not money. He's wanting the extra years and extra time in New Orleans. So if you were to extend him right now, you'd actually lower his cap hit. You'd actually create some cap space, but he wants to retire a Saint. That has not been anything hidden that he's done. When Cam Jordan signed his Saints for life contract, Alvin said, you know what, got to put the pressure on him. I want the same thing. But, if you were to trade Alvin Kamara, this is a move that just indicates you're punting on the season. It means you're giving up. You're throwing in the towel. You have no desire to win another game. That's what this move would indicate. And, if you were to trade Alvin Kamara, who are you going to have be the running back? Because Jamal Williams hasn't been all that good. Kendre Miller, jury's still out. We don't know much about him. I'm just going to keep it real with you guys. I am 100% against trading Alvin Kamara. I want to keep Alvin Kamara in New Orleans for the foreseeable future. Sure, maybe he's getting a little old. Sure, production might be a little bit down. But in 2024, I would argue that he's actually playing more football than ever. And statistically, he is. 104 carries this season. It's the second most through the first 6 games throughout his career. I'd be lying if I kind of was scripting this video and I couldn't shake this thought. It feels like the Saints are sort of burning rubber with Alvin Kamara, and what I mean by that is they're just running him to the ground. They're running him into the dirt. They're just running with Alvin Kamara. Not Taysom Hill, with Alvin Kamara. It's not a bad move. It's also one of those things like, are they looking to extend him if they're just going to beat the brakes off Alvin Kamara, let him wear all the way down, get all the tread off the tires? Like, it's kind of where I'm at. It feels like the Saints have been very adamant on getting him the ball, which isn't a bad game plan. It's just he's taken a lot of wear and tear this year. And so in terms of 30-plus-year-old running back sticking around longer and getting extension, it's just kind of hard for me to see that being the case. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it does feel like he's been getting a lot more run in the past few years. Now, really quick reminder. If there's any sort of trade buzz, if there's any updates, if there's any news about a trade target, a trade candidate, whatever it is, we're going to keep you covered and we're going to keep you notified. So be sure to subscribe and lock us in. We actually recorded this video before our watch party. So this is the number that we're at right now on Wednesday afternoon filming it. I bet we're already past 37,000 when we get to post this video. So if you want to help your brother out, get us to 38,000. It'd be pretty cool. Subscribe today. All righty, so let's talk about Paulson Adebo. A lot of players on this roster, and a lot of them, or not many of them, are nearly as frustrating as Adebo. And I'm sure when I put the cornerback here, a lot of y'all were saying, oh, I bet that's Marshawn Lattimore. I would actually argue to keep Marshawn Lattimore over Paulson Adebo. He leads the team in penalties this season. He's had 6 total penalties that have been, like, flagged. But then he has 2 other penalties that were declined. By that same token, he leads the team in interceptions. He also is a player that is really reliable and does a lot of things for the New Orleans Saints right now on terms of the defensive side of the ball. You know, it is worth noting he will be a free agent after this season. So if the Saints want to keep him around, they're going to have to find a way to get creative to pay him. So, sure, Paulson Adebo gets a lot of penalties. There's no question about it. It's very, very frustrating. It is very, very frustrating. I'm not arguing with you. Do not think that I'm saying it's not. But what I will say is, when you have more than double the passes defended to lead the roster in passes defended, and you lead the team in interceptions, probably for good reason. There's a reason for it. And the question you have to answer is the risk worth the reward? Are you willing to deal with the penalties in order to get those turnovers and pass breakups? I will say I think Paulson Adebo might actually have the best trade value on the roster. I don't think many teams are looking for aging running backs. I don't think many teams are looking for aging quarterbacks, aging safeties, I think that right now the best trade value is Paulson Adebo. And if you did trade Paulson Adebo, I want to be that guy, but Kool-Aid McKinstry's sitting right there, and he's gotten some run already this season. 2 pass breakups already, a tackle for loss. He has a total of 10 tackles. 8 of those are solo. I'm not opposed to giving Kool-Aid McKinstry a little bit more run. But let's take a look at what Paulson Adebo has done this year. 46 total tackles. In terms of solo, 40 of them. That's really good, guys. He's getting a lot of tackles. He also has a lot of pass breakups. Also is one of the top in the NFL in interceptions. Also allowed 426 yards. So, what about Marshawn Lattimore, though? He's actually playing some of his best football of his career. Would you believe me if I told you that? He has been targeted at the lowest rate across the league. A 7.6% this season that Marshawn Lattimore has been targeted. That's called being a lockdown corner. That is shutting down an entire side of the field. Don't get me wrong. The production isn't nearly as good as Paulson Adebo's. It's because he's not getting tested. It's because he's not getting picked on like Paulson Adebo. Just going to say that. I'm in the camp of keep Marshawn over Adebo. All right, let's talk about the tight end position. Juwan Johnson. Now, this is a player I personally, and I'm the first to admit it, I'm the first one to understand where you're coming from. I'm a lot higher on Juwan Johnson than most Saints fans, and that's okay. That's fine. When it comes to the players you have in the roster, Juwan Johnson, I don't know if many of you guys know this, he was a wide receiver that the Saints transitioned to a tight end. And I'm not saying that that's a bad move. I think it's actually a good move to do if you have a player who can do that and fits a good size profile. I'm all for it. But I'm also kind of in the camp of if we're not going to utilize him as much as we have, you might as well try and make something happen, trade him away, and get something in return. I mean, Foster Moreau, he is a true tight end. Dallin Holker, he is a true tight end. Taysom Hill, not a tight end. Juwan Johnson, wide receiver turned tight end. So when you look at Juwan Johnson versus Foster Moreau, they are very similar. They are used very similarly. I think that's a word. They are used in a very similar fashion. 14 targets to 10, 12 receptions to 9, 118 to 112 yards, 1 touchdown to 2, just under 10 yards per catch to just over 12, about 12 and a half. Again, a trade wouldn't hurt the New Orleans Saints all that bad. I am the first to admit it. I know that I am more of a fan of Juwan Johnson than most people. But the Saints have intriguing depth. I like Foster Moreau. I think he's been good. I really like Dallin Holker. I want to see what he's capable of doing. Just a matter of giving him the opportunity. And you're not going to give those guys that opportunity if you have somebody taking those reps away from him. So with Juwan Johnson, maybe he's a player that you could trade away. I don't think it would necessarily hurt, but for the record, I just want to say this. I just want to see the tight ends get used better. Because quite frankly, it is a joke. Not nearly being used enough with Derek Carr. He's always been a guy who loves targeting his tight ends. Let's do it more. Just do it more. It's not hard. And you're going to have to do it more. Because right now, your only 3 receivers on your roster right now, the only 3 active receivers, because Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed missed on Thursday Night Football, Bub Means, Cedric Wilson, Mason Tipton. 2 of those are rookies. 1 of those is a vet. Between the 3 of them, it's bad. Between the 3 of them. I have this actually written down. 14 catches for 116 yards and 1 touchdown. So you have to utilize the tight ends better. There's just simply no reason you can't. There's no argument as to why you can't. You have to use them better. Well, let's talk about the quarterback. You guys probably stuck around because you wanted to see what we had to say about the quarterback. I'm going to say trade Jake Haener, man. I'm the first one to say it. I don't hate Jake Haener. I think he's a fine football player. I just like Spencer Rattler more. And I think that the Saints like Spencer Rattler more. I think if the Saints liked Haener more, they would have made him the starter. Right now, Derek Carr is out. Right now, it's week to week. Good news is he could be progressing day to day. I think Haener would have been the starter for last week's game and this game, or I guess week 6 and the week 7 game. He would have been the starter if they liked him more than Rattler, in my opinion. I don't think there's a need for 2 young quarterbacks, a first and a second year, that are both very raw. I'm kind of in the camp of just moving forward. Let Carr and Rattler compete for quarterback 1. If Carr is a better quarterback, throw him out there. Fine. You have a 12-year veteran at this point. 11-year this season, but 12 years next season. You have a 12-year vet who can make it happen, who can be good enough. And when the pressure starts getting on and he starts playing poorly, or if he does, if any of that happens, you have Rattler waiting to take over. I'm just kind of in the camp of I'd rather just run with Rattler over Haener moving forward. And I think Rattler can be great. I really think he can be great. And we've talked about this before, and I just think that this graphic does a great job of explaining and condensing my thoughts here. There's no question about it. He has good arm talent. He has good pocket awareness. He is tough. He has good accuracy. He's really good at making plays out of structure. We saw that last week, over 100 yards throwing on the run. That's the best that a Saints quarterback has ever had in the last handful of years. And then on top of that, he is in a really good situation where going into this season, he was able to sit, he was able to learn, he was able to develop, and thus he was able to go on and win. And there's no question about it. I'm not just going to sit here and say all these positives. There's no question about it. He needs a lot of work. He needs to get better. There must be development. He is still very, very raw. There's no question about it. But I've been impressed with what I've seen so far. For a rookie in a season that right now it's all doom and gloom, I'm going to just go ahead and hold on to the little bit of hope that I got. Now, pick a quarterback for me. Who do you want to be, I guess, the QB2 / the QB of the future? Would you rather be Rattler? Would you rather be Haener? Let me know your thoughts down below. And as always, Saints fans, y'all stay golden. We will see you next time.